You ingest something toxic every single day and you've stopped noticing. Not in your food or water, in your mind. Thoughts you take in without questioning. Stories you tell yourself without examining. Interpretations of events that feel like perception, but are actually construction. You've been poisoning yourself with your own mental products. And the symptoms are everywhere. The anxiety, the resentment, the persistent feeling that something is wrong. But you keep treating the symptoms while continuing to consume the poison. The source is so close you can't see it. It's not what's happening to you. It's what you're telling yourself about what's happening to you. There's a specific kind of suffering that exists only in thought. The event itself is over. It happened in the past, or it hasn't happened yet, or it may never happen at all. But you keep experiencing it through replay, through anticipation, through the story you've constructed that keeps the suffering alive. You're not being hurt by reality. Reality is neutral, mostly. You're being hurt by your narrative about reality. And the narrative plays on a loop so familiar you've stopped recognizing it as separate from the world itself. The poison is in the telling, and you're telling yourself toxic stories all day, every day, without ever noticing you're the one telling them. You've wondered why you can't feel better, why the anxiety persists despite circumstances improving, why the resentment continues even after the person is gone, why past events keep hurting long after they've ended. The answer is that you're repoisoning yourself constantly. The event may have stopped, but the thought hasn't. You're consuming the same toxic interpretation again and again, experiencing the pain again and again, never realizing that you're the one doing this to yourself. The wound isn't being kept open by the world. It's being kept open by you. Epictetus was born a slave and became one of the most influential philosophers of the ancient world. He understood suffering from the inside, and what he learned, what he taught, was startling in its simplicity. You're not disturbed by things themselves, but by your judgments about things. The thing and your interpretation of the thing are different. One you often can't control. The other you absolutely can, or could, if you recognize the difference. Consider how this works in practice. Someone says something to you. That's the event. Sound waves hitting your ears, words registering in your brain. Neutral. Then interpretation begins. What did they mean? What does this say about how they see you? What does it imply about your worth, your position, your safety? These interpretations feel like perception, like you're simply seeing what's there. But you're not. You're constructing meaning. And the meaning you construct determines your experience far more than the event itself. The poison is in the construction. When you interpret neutral events as threatening, you experience threat. When you interpret ambiguous words as insult, you experience insult. When you interpret someone's silence as rejection, you experience rejection. The experience is real. You actually feel the threat, the insult, the rejection. But the cause isn't the event. The cause is your interpretation, and the interpretation is generated by you, which means the suffering you're experiencing from these events is largely self-inflicted. Epictetus would not tell you to think positive thoughts. That's just replacing one construction with another, and it doesn't address the fundamental confusion. What he would tell you is to notice the construction, to recognize when you're moving from event to interpretation, and to question whether the interpretation is necessary, accurate, useful. Not to suppress reaction, but to examine it. Not to pretend you're not suffering, but to understand what's actually causing the suffering. This is harder than it sounds because the construction is invisible. It happens so fast, so automatically, that event and interpretation seem to be the same thing. They said that, and it hurt me. But these are two things, not one. They said that, that's the event. It hurt me, that's the interpretation. Between them is a space you've never explored because you didn't know it existed, and in that space is your freedom. The poison you drink daily isn't coming from outside. It's coming from the story-making faculty of your own mind, running unsupervised, generating interpretations that create suffering. The anxiety you feel about the future is poison you're making by constructing threatening predictions. The resentment you carry about the past is poison you're making by replaying events with interpretive overlays of injury and injustice. The dissatisfaction you feel with the present is poison you're making by comparing what is to what you think should be. None of this means your pain isn't real. The pain is absolutely real, but its source isn't where you think. And addressing the wrong source is why nothing has worked. You've tried changing your circumstances and found that anxiety moved with you. You've tried distancing yourself from difficult people and found that resentment survived the distance. You've tried achieving more and found that dissatisfaction persisted regardless, because you were treating symptoms while continuing to swallow the poison. Epictetus offered a practice, not a philosophy. Daily attention to the distinction between event and interpretation. Questioning your stories when they arise. Asking, is this necessarily true? Is there another way to see this? Is my interpretation the only possible interpretation? These questions don't eliminate the mind's story-making function. That's not possible. But they create space. They introduce choice, where before there was only automatic reaction. They allow you to stop swallowing the poison quite so unconsciously. You've been suffering from self-inflicted wounds presented as external attacks. You've been drinking poison and blaming the glass. You've been torturing yourself with stories and wondering why reality seems so cruel. Epictetus's teaching offers a different possibility, that you're not a victim of your circumstances, but of your constructions about them. And constructions can be changed, not easily, not overnight, but genuinely. The poison you drink daily is optional, not the events. Events will continue to happen, many of them unwelcome. But the interpretations that transform events into suffering are generated by you. And what you generate, you can. With practice, with attention, with the willingness to examine rather than just react, learn to generate differently. The suffering that seems so solid might turn out to be negotiable. The prison that seemed inescapable might turn out to have doors you never noticed, because you were too busy drinking the poison to look.